In all the years that I've been a teenage girl, I have never once verbally raged against my parents. As most of you may know, this is a very rare achievement. I guess you could say I'm like the perfect daughter. Although that title is a bit of an exaggeration, the fact that my mild-mannered nature can be coined as a rare trait really speaks to the state of our world. I doubt I have to tell any of you that our world is becoming angrier and angrier by the second. A recent Gallup poll found that America is now ranked as one of the angriest countries in the world. Even I, the self-titled perfect daughter, am guilty of these outbursts of rage. Although I may not express my anger openly with my parents, I won't deny the hours I've spent alone in my bedroom, scripting arguments to use against them. What, am I the only one that does that? Now, considering that up to this point I haven't really framed rage in the greatest light, you're probably expecting me to say, "Hey guys, cool it." But that's not the case. Rage is clearly an integral part of our society. No matter the popular view on it, it has remained a relevant emotion. Instead, we need to learn to use our rage more effectively, rather than in the barbaric ways that have given rage such a bad rep. In order to do that, we must first stare daggers at the causes of our inefficient rage, rant and rave about the effects, and finally simmer down into some anger management, so we can learn how to use our rage the right way. As part of being the perfect daughter, I've never been grounded, so I wanted to see what it was like. Last Friday, I stayed home all night by myself. Then again, I do that every Friday. In order to understand what pushes our buttons, we must first understand the spectrum of rage. Pulitzer Prize winner Charles Duhigg lays out two categories in The Atlantic of February 2019. The first being moral indignation. Moral indignation acts as encouragement for the oppressed in the fight against their oppressors. A fantastic example of this has been seen in the Black Lives Matter movement. However, moral indignation can unfortunately give to our second category. Duhigg explains. If moral indignation persists, however, and if the indignant lose faith that their anger is being heard, it can give to another category, a desire for revenge. So basically, our worst form of rage is rooted in feeling unheard. Well, it looks like we're screwed. I doubt I have to tell any of you that our society isn't necessarily known for its empathy. I mean, this has been the case for centuries. Joanne Freeman, professor in history and American studies at Yale University, reveals that during the mid-1800s, Southern congressmen would frequently assault their fellow Congress members with canes. Eventually, the North chose to fight fire with fire, and a full-out brawl ensued. Now, as much as we may like to believe that we've gotten better at talking out our feelings, recent events have shown that not to be the case. The most obvious of those events being January 6th, 2021, when, due to feeling unheard, we saw hordes of rioters violently storm the US Capitol. And even though their rage was rooted in falsehoods, conspiracy theories, and their own bigotry, it's clear that across the country, vengeance is brewing. Now, I have tried to rebel against my parents in small ways. Just last week, I left the cap off the toothpaste. But then I went back and put it on. I'm not a monster. Unfortunately, we have worse things than dried up toothpaste to be worrying about. Now I know what you must be thinking. Is a whole point dedicated to the effects of vengeful emotions really necessary? I mean, you could probably already name a couple hundred off the top of your head. War, death, hunger, etc. And I agree. Most effects of unrighteous rage are fairly obvious. Keyword being most. What we really need to look at are the lesser-known effects upon the participants in these vengeful deeds. A prime example of those effects may be found in Larry Cagle, a Tulsa, Oklahoma teacher who in the fall of 2017 stood up for what was right and faced the unfortunate consequences. 2017 was, similarly to most years, not a great one for educators. Government funding continued to drop, and subsequently so did the quality of teacher and student lives. Cagle witnessed this firsthand. Instead of a $300 million budget cut in state funding, some Tulsa schools were only in session 4 days a week. Others became overrun by rodents. And teacher salaries, as reported by the CNBC of March 2018, were often lower than those of gas station attendants. Cagle did everything in his power to right this wrong, speaking with leaders, volunteering on school board campaigns, and even leading strikes. Yet no change came. Oklahoma officials still refused to listen, and Cagle was left with nothing but revenge on his mind. This is seen in his 2019 interview for The Atlantic, stating, "All I could think about was punishing the people who had made me angry for so long, and I was angry all the time." Cagle's story shows us that when forced down the path of revenge, no matter how honorable your cause, you're more than likely going to end up empty-handed and pissed off. On my journey to better express my anger with my parents, I found I'm going to start being serious. So and don't judge me too harshly here, decided to stay out past my curfew. But then I realized I have no clue what it actually is. I've never been outside my house past 9 o'clock before. We can all relate to Larry's story. I doubt that any of us would have reacted much differently when faced with such indifference. It is because of this that we can see the solution doesn't necessarily lie with us controlling our anger, but rather changing the way we view it. Rage is not a bad thing. Without rage, we would most certainly still be under the rule of offices stuffed full of powdered wig-wearing white men. Speaking of the British, the BBC of July 30th, 2019 points out that rage, when used correctly rather than as revenge, is responsible for some of our greatest achievements. Without rage, we would have never seen the armies of suffragists, civil rights activists, members of the LGBTQ+ community, flooding the streets demanding to be treated as human. This recent stigma surrounding rage is what causes ignorant school boards and corrupt 19th century governments to dismiss activists. In turn, this demonization of rage is the true cause for revenge. But while it is important to understand rage, it is just as important to listen to it. The 2019 Hewlett Foundation article, "Listening to the People Who Think We Are Wrong," outlines how. The main point of this piece being listening with empathy. Larry Kramer, professor in law and author of this article, gives the best description, stating, "In every case, taking the time to understand the best version of our opponent's argument will not only better ourselves, but will also likely lower the temperature and increase the chances of reaching a suitable outcome." We need to start listening to others, even when they are in a rage, because history has proven rage is where change is made. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. The supreme task is to organize and unite people so that their anger becomes a transforming force. I may never have the courage to rage against my parents, but maybe that's for the best. Rage should be reserved for those moments that really call for it, not just some teenage angst. Today, we looked at the outrageous causes of our misconceptions of rage, ranted about the effects, and finally learned how to come about a peaceful solution. I challenge you, along with myself, to take the gamble of rage, to put what you believe in out into the world. And when you've done that, I pose a far more difficult challenge. Listen.